Welcome back to Section 247's The Goal Line Stand, 32 for 32, our NFL preview series. Today, we are focusing on the now Las Vegas Raiders. A little bit odd to say that. It's actually occurring after decades in the state of California. The Raiders have upped and moved to Vegas, and it looks like they're playing in a Roomba there on the strip. Well, hey, it's neither here nor there. Very nice looking building, which nobody will be in.
Yeah.
I am Michael Lipinski. I am joined as always by Brett Halpern. As you can see in the upper corner there, at GL Stand Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're going to get into this. This is year 2 under the Gruden Mayock regime. What are you thinking here about the Raiders, Brett? 7-9 a year ago, third in the AFC West. Again, first season in Vegas. Let's get into it a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned it's like the first season in Vegas. Well, of all years because of COVID, they really could play anywhere in a random field and it wouldn't matter. So it's just so strange. And although they will be playing in Aruba, good old Allegiant Stadium. No, it's not Allegiant. Is it Allegiant Stadium?
I think that's the name of it.
Yeah.
It's a very nice looking building, really cool looking. But nobody's going to be there to see it, which is going to be the theme for a lot of teams. But
I'm sure, and we're going to get into a discussion on one of our regular episodes about whether it's fair for certain teams to have even some fans while others don't. But anyways, going back to the Raiders and their offseason, I think obviously they definitely had more acquisitions than departures based upon numbers. But I would tell you, I think they had some pretty valuable pickups there. I mean, the first one that most Philadelphia Eagles fans will see is Nelson Aguilar. He definitely provides depth. We'll get into him a little bit more later. Malik Collins is really good penetrating defensive tackle from the beloved Cowboys. Eric Kush provides good depth along the offensive line. I think their linebacker haul here was really important. Nick Kwiatkowski, Corey Littleton, they're both 3-down linebackers. And I think that's been one of the problems with the Raiders defense in the last several years. They had more of the traditional, two down linebackers for, on first and second down, where you then have to bring in sub packages. And, the trend in the NFL now is to have linebackers who could stay on the field for all 3 downs. Marcus Mariota is definitely an interesting pickup. That's someone who Gruden loved back when he was an analyst for ESPN.
He was huge on them coming out of college. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this works out.
Yeah, particularly if Derek Carr struggles, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see how much of a leash Gruden has on Carr, because he loves Mariota. And, I think the offense could change drastically if they put in Mariota, and it'll look something more akin to the Baltimore Ravens offense, because they're going to want to use Mariota's legs. Carl Nassib, I got to tell you, every time I see his name now, all I think of is what's his name? Haley on the Browns saying, "I can't believe your parents named you Carl." I'm not trying to make fun of all of our fans out there that have the name Carl, but it was a funny segment on Hard Knocks a few years ago. But to his credit, Carl Nassib's he's had like 12 sacks last 2 years, so it's a good depth pickup. Nick O'Leary, the grandson of Jack Nicklaus, another good depth pickup. Demarius Randall's going to help out in the secondary. And then, last but not least, future Hall of Famer Jason Witten.
I completely forgotten about that, by the way, until we were started the process of doing this. It's like, oh my God, yeah. Jason Witten ended up there.
Yeah, and he's not expected to be the Jason Witten of old, but nevertheless, I think he's going to be an invaluable teammate. I mean, the guy's tough as nails. I mean, come on, the guy used to play. He was playing with like ruptured spleens and things of that nature. He's a super tough guy. And I think the last thing to go for a tight end is their blocking ability, and he's a very good blocker. So, just for those reasons, I think he's a solid second tight end, and he's going to help further groom Darren Waller, their Pro Bowl starting tight end. In terms of departures, they actually tried trading away PJ Hall. He failed the physical, so they just cut him. Carl Joseph's in the box, strong safety. Not that much of a loss, I think. Benson Mayock underperformed. DeAndre Washington is a good running back, and we're going to talk more about him when it gets to the Kansas City Chiefs. Tahir Whitehead, as I mentioned, decent linebacker, but more of a two-down linebacker. And then you see, obviously another, strange times, but we also have their COVID-19 opt-outs, and not to disparage these guys, but I think in the case of the Raiders, this is more about depth. These guys,
right.
none of these three guys were not starters. But again, it always helps to have guys. DJ Killings definitely played some last year, but this is more of a depth issue for the Raiders as compared with some teams like the Patriots, whether intentionally or not, dealing with a lot of starters who opted out.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to the Patriots. Let's take a look at the Raiders draft. Damn, I almost called them Los Angeles Raiders. Looking at the LV is throwing me off. I'm really dating it myself now back. Let's take a look at their draft here. I like their draft, and what I like about the draft is, and I give credit to Gruden and Mayock here, is it's very front end of the draft loaded the first couple days. So in theory, there's not many reaches when you're drafting guys early on. What's your take on this? How did this turn out for them?
So it's funny you mentioned there's not many reaches, because most people would argue that their second pick, the second of their first round picks, Damon Arnett, was a big reach. A lot of people had him as a third round talent. I thought he would go late in the second. But one thing that's clearly been.
Let me clarify.
No, I understood. I understood what you meant.
You're not drafting a guy in the 7th round and saying, "Hey, he's going to be a starter," like we discussed. With the Chargers. We like some of their late round picks. This is a little bit more. It's a money thing at that juncture as far as where he's drafted.
Yeah,
but he's probably going to be a player. If you're first, second, third round, the assumption is you're going to contribute year one.
Completely. And let me first say, as a Giant fan, I wouldn't mind Damon Arnett on the Giants right now. So, having said that, as we discussed back in the day, during the mock draft, is a very deep cornerback class. And so it's a lot of it really was a matter of, personal taste. But a lot of people had Damon Arnett more in the back of the pack of those top cornerbacks. That's what I'm trying to get to. But having said that, I think one thing's clear, and you could see it from this list and, from last year's draft, Mayock and Gruden love players from big programs. So you have Henry Ruggs there from Alabama. You have Ohio State, 2 Clemson guys, two more SEC guys, and then Louisiana Tech. But anyways, Henry Ruggs.
Is it a Gruden thing or a Mayock thing? I know Mayock is a big time program guy, but Mayock was also a guy that was extremely high on Carson Wentz coming out.
Yeah.
Really beat that drum. And there's a guy that's North Dakota State. So to me, from going back, and this is listening to Gruden, the analyst, and Gruden, the TV guy, he really hammered home big time programs. Is this more of his stamp than Mayock's?
That's an interesting question, because I think then that goes to really who has the power here. Because a lot of people thought when they hired Mayock, well, is he just really kind of like a, ceremonial figure as a general manager? I think it's a joint preference, but you make an excellent point there that Gruden for a while as an analyst for Monday Night Football was always talking about big programs, but anyway, Henry Ruggs is probably the closest thing to Tyreek Hill. Just incredibly fast, ran a 4.27 40, but he's more of a receiver coming out of college than Tyreek Hill was. So that's something that people need to realize. As I mentioned, Damon Arnett from Ohio State is a solid cornerback. Had played really well. The thing that people kind of forget was he was, in a way, he was picked on, so to speak, because no one would throw opposite him because you had Jeff Okudah on the other side. So in a way, like his stats are kind of skewed because the opposing quarterback wasn't even trying to throw to the receiver who was being guarded by Arnett's teammate Jeff Okudah, who was the third pick of the draft, I believe, by the Lions. So Lynn Bowden's a really interesting one. He's a running back, wide receiver. He is, I kind of view him as like the modern day Antoine Randall L, but thicker. He actually ended up playing a bit of quarterback at Kentucky last year because they had so many injuries. Brian Edwards, very talented wide receiver, South Carolina, had some injury issues. And then I think, so speaking of Damon Arnett with the top cornerbacks, right? Amik Robertson was in that conversation but had an injury. So because of that, I think that was a steal in the fourth round. I think both Arnett and Robertson are going to come in and contribute greatly in the defensive backfield. So, all in all, I think, like you said, it was a really good draft. And it's interesting because, how often do we see a draft where there's no fifth, sixth, or seventh round picks?
It really is. It's very bizarre. I couldn't even tell you I don't even know if it's ever occurred.
Yeah.
Usually just off of compensatory picks, you get some things slotted in weird spots and things get moved around and you trade things. The Raiders wanted to get it done and over with and get out of there and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, all in all, I think it was a solid draft.
I agree with you. It was very Gruden-esque. I can remember as it was going on live thinking, this has Gruden written all over it. This is just his type of thing. And let's see what happens. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah.
We have 4 key questions to the Las Vegas Raiders in 2020. I held off there. I stopped myself. Number 1, Gruden Mayock year 2. We just kind of discussed it. Do you see their vision and do you like it?
Well, I think you see part of their vision. You think about it, the first thing that they kind of constructed / took care of was that offensive line. And so I think that they want to be a physical team. So the offensive line, I think, is one of the best in the NFL, with Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson, and Incognito as the guards, Trent Brown, and they drafted last year in the first round Colton Miller, who really took a lot of leaps forward in his progression in the second year. So it's a strong offensive line. I think they want to be physical, and this draft, if there was anything, it looks like they want to get faster. So that would be the 2 things that I don't quite yet know. Are they trying to build an identity as a defensive team or offensive team? That I think we still need to wait and see. But they definitely want to be physical and fast. And then, as we discussed, I think they have a preference for players from larger programs. So
it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the quarterback at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
Gruden, by all accounts, regardless of what he says in the media, has never come off as a huge fan of Carr.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out there. Yeah. Let's talk about their offense a little bit more. What is the biggest hole offensively for the Raiders?
I think you may have just alluded to it. So let's work backwards. It's definitely not the offensive line. It's definitely not the tight ends. Receivers are a bit of a question mark because they're unproven. You have Henry Ruggs, who just mentioned. Henry Ruggs is now coming in and going to be expected to be wide receiver 1. He has all the physical talent in the world to do that. And as I said, he's not just a straight line speed guy. He is a receiver. But if you looked at him back at Alabama, he was never counted on to be the number 1 receiver. The number 1 receiver for Alabama was Jerry Jeudy, who was drafted by the Denver Broncos, who we'll be talking about in the next preview. So that, they have Tyrell Williams. He had plantar fasciitis in both feet last year, which that really sucks. And still managed. He still caught like 46 balls, something like that.
What do you think? Himself out if you have that in both feet. Does it make it? Does it even it out? You know, I've always wondered that. Hey, both knees. Well, okay, so now you're a little bit slower, and you're. But anyway.
Well, I guess maybe you're not going to get any of those other compensatory injuries.
Sure,
right?
yeah, because it's all
Because you can't limp.
Not going to go.
Yeah, your hips or your hamstrings.
Your lower back. It's all downhill.
Yeah, you basically just can't move.
Yeah, don't get.
Yeah, that's I'm thinking about that more and more. That must suck for him. But tight ends definitely not an issue. Like I said, Darren Waller, Jason Witten. Wide receivers been unproven. Running backs, you have Josh Jacobs, who was a really good rookie last year. So I think the biggest hole, and maybe hole might be a little strong. Weakness might be is Derek Carr,
who's a good quarterback.
Yeah,
but it doesn't. It might not. He's not. I don't think he's the system guy that Gruden wants.
Well, so look, he had up until he broke his arm that one year with the Raiders when they made the playoffs a few years ago.
McGloin had to start, right?
Yeah, he was right up there in the MVP consideration.
Agreed. I mean, I think a surprise.
Yeah,
he wasn't thought of as an elite guy, quote unquote franchise quarterback, but he turned out to be just that.
Yeah. Look, he threw for 4,000 yards last year. Given the fact they didn't have Antonio Brown, they had double plantar fasciitis Tyrell Williams, a rookie in Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller. So that's a lot of yards for not at the time, not a lot of weapons. I think another hole offensively, and this could be attributed to the whole team, but this was again more last year. You have so many more weapons now. Was the red zone offense? They just didn't put it in the end zone enough. So again, I think Derek Carr is definitely the biggest question mark. So I guess you could say that's the whole offensively.
There we go. Defensively, have they improved from 2020?
I think that I think they have. Going back to the acquisitions of Kwiatkowski and Corey Littleton and linebackers, so they've gotten faster. I really like last year, so they drafted Cleveland Farrell with the 4th pick. I thought that was a bit of a reach. I thought he was more of a late round, first round talent. He's an excellent team guy. And again, he was the captain at Clemson. So, I think that's something that Gruden and Mayock loved. But I think it turns out last year I don't know what exactly he was sick with, but he, during the season, lost like 15 to 20 pounds. So I think a healthier Cleveland Farrell, he's going to have more production. You have Max Crosby, who I thought was a tremendous steal. 4th round pick out of Eastern Michigan, had 10 sacks. Really good defensive end. You brought in Carl Nassib. Jonathan Abram, their other 1st round pick last year. Remember, they got all these 1st round picks because of the Khalil Mack trade. Jonathan Abram only played in the first game and then was hurt. So it's like you're getting another 1st round talent coming in. It was almost like he redshirted. And then you have Demarius Randall, who is going to play safety. He used to play corner. When he came into the league, people were like, do we put him at corner or safety? I know the Packers tried him out at corner. I always thought he was going to be a better safety. So I definitely think the Raiders defense is going to be improved from last year.
Let's move on to question number 4, and I can't wait to answer this one. I'm geared up for it.
Yeah.
Aguilar fit in Vegas. If you want a guy with no hands, yeah, hey, why not? You got a guy with no feet, you have a guy with no hands. So
yeah. No, look,
they got it. I mean, look, as an Eagles fan,
yeah,
I appreciate what Nelson Aguilar did to win the Eagles the Super Bowl. Had a tremendous year when the Eagles won Super Bowl 52. Nelson Aguilar never lived up to the billing. Yeah. And that's probably because he was drafted wrong by the previous regime, and he was not necessarily a number 1 receiver. So does he fit in Vegas? Can Gruden find a role for him?
I think at most he's a depth guy. I agree with you, going back to his Eagles tenure. This was a kid I followed back in high school. He was an amazing high school player. I think he was down at Tampa, then went to USC. And you're right. I mean, the Eagles Super Bowl year, he had just a tremendous year and was a great compliment to the other receivers. And it just, other than that year, and I guess, look, in the end of the day, you guys got your ring, so it doesn't matter. It clicked that year. every other year. It just didn't click, whether it was physically, mentally. There was just so many lapses with him. I feel like Gruden is not going to be too appreciative and tolerant.
He's not going to be patient.
Yeah, and
He's
patient. Yeah,
patient.
that's the best word for it. But I think he definitely provide. Look, as a fifth receiver, I would take Nelson Aguilar. Again,
how they have fallen.
But again, think about the value here, right? So Eagles fans will always evaluate him as a first round pick.
Right.
And as a first round pick, yes, he underperformed, though again, he performed very well the Super Bowl year, which again will lasting memories. Yeah. But for the Raiders, you don't have to evaluate him as a first round pick. He's, a marginal free agent pickup. So from that perspective, yeah, he's a fifth wide receiver. The only thing is, I don't know if he's going to give you anything on special teams. And normally, a fifth round receiver will also have special teams duties.
Right.
So
it's going to be interesting to see where he fits in.
Yeah.
Maybe when we get to the big preview show, which is coming up at the end of our 32 for 32 here, where we kind of review everything as a whole, give our predictions. Maybe we can have a discussion on some notable players that may or may not make it out of camp.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying this here program, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share it with friends, let them know that we're doing all this great stuff throughout the National Football League. Coming up tomorrow is the Denver Broncos. New offensive coordinator there, some changes. It's going to be interesting to see how the division plays out.
Yeah.
After that, we are going to move on to the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs and wrap up the AFC West. Follow us on all social media at GL Stan Show. You can check out our podcast, which talks more general football than just this here 32 for 32 at the Goal Line Stand all over the place, thegoallinestand.com. I'm Mike. That's Brett. Thank you for joining us. We will see you down the road.